In this episode, we'll take a look at a professional level LED panel light, the Litepanels Gemini 1x1 Hard RGB WW light. Now, just at the outset here, this is a professional level light, so it is not a budget level light. But if you are more in the market for a budget level light, we'd love to have you stick around so you can see what kind of features a professional level light has. Also, I'm coming from the perspective of a corporate video shooter. I do a ton of talking head and interview style video is typically what I'm doing, so I'm really kind of looking at this light from that perspective. Now, there are a ton of 1x1 LED lights out on the market. What makes the Gemini 1x1 Hard different than a lot of the other lights out there? Well, there are a few things. Number one, we're just now starting to see more hard LED panel lights come out on the market, it feels like. We saw some with the Lupo full color 30 hard light. They also have a 60, which is like basically a 2x1. What's unique about the Gemini, though, is that it's probably the most powerful hard light in a 1x1 form factor I've come across so far. And that's not only just a 1x1 bicolor, that is, tungsten to daylight. This is a full RGB light, and it extends from 2700 Kelvin on the white all the way up to 10,000 Kelvin. So super versatile. But in addition to that, it has a very narrow beam angle. So if you take all the diffusers off, and it comes with 2 diffusers, you get a 46-degree beam angle. If you put the light diffusion panel on it, the beam angle is somewhere around 120 degrees from what I can tell. And then if you put the dome diffuser on it, you're looking at about 170 degrees. So you get a very different set of use cases for a single LED light. Now in the past, for example, with the Lupos and with the Aputure 300, you get a soft light kind of out of the box. With the Lupo, you either have to buy the soft version or buy the hard version. So the really cool thing about the Gemini is that you can go from hard to soft with a single light with the included diffusers. Now, of course, all the professionals are going to understand the distinction between soft and hard light, but for those that aren't very familiar with those terms, a hard light is a light that will create very distinct shadows, whereas a soft light will create a kind of a smooth transition from light to shadow. That's the big difference between the two. And so there's a time for each of them. Sometimes you want hard shadows. For example, with a product shot, sometimes I want to create a little bit more drama. And so hard shadows can be really useful. Typically, for my use, when I am doing an interview or a talking head, I'm going to want soft light on the face of the talent like we have here. We're shooting through a 4x4 silk right here. And that creates a much softer light. And so I'm actually shooting a Gemini 1x1 through a silk to soften it up tremendously to do a talking head. And in this case, I have the hard light on the background here. And you can see it creates sort of a circle of light right behind me, but it falls off fairly quickly. Now, in addition to that, the Gemini has a slot system where you can slide different things in. So in fact, that's how the dome diffuser goes into the slot. The light diffuser actually pushes into the unit, so you can still put something else in the slot. And there is available a grid, which also helps to tighten up the angle a little bit and keep light from spilling outside of the area where you want it. So you also have a little bit more control that way. One of the hallmarks of a professional level LED light is the ability to tune the magenta green balance. And of course, this has that feature. So you never have to worry about the light turning more green over time. You can always just adjust it and get it right where it needs to be. In addition to that, you can match existing lights. So in a lot of my corporate work, we have overhead fluorescent lighting, and we have the ability to match that so that we're not fighting with that in post and having to do all sorts of secondary color corrections and things like that. Now, there are a variety of different modes for the light. You have the correlated color temperature mode. That's basically the tungsten up to 10,000 Kelvin mode. In the RGB mode, you actually get to dial in the exact amount of red, green, and blue. So if you like to work that way, that's an option. You also have the hue, saturation, intensity mode, which is actually my favorite color mode to work in, where you get to set the hue, basically turn it around the color dial, and then you set the saturation and the intensity, which is basically the dimmer. So that's a pretty nice way to work and really kind of works intuitively for me. You also have gel modes. So there are 300 different gels you can emulate, Roscoe, Lee, as well as some others. So if you're trying to match some specific gels, you can also do that very nicely as well. So Gone are the days of having to haul around a whole gel kit, which is really, really nice. Another thing that squarely places the Gemini 1x1 hard into the Pro realm is that there's all sorts of ways to remotely control. Of course, the DMX in and out ports. You also have a couple of Ethernet ports. You have a port here for a Bluetooth dongle, so if you want to control via app, you can do that as well. And then there's an entire menu for setting up the different types of DMX controls, so different protocols that you can use. And there's also going to be Wi-Fi support here soon. It hasn't been implemented yet, but the hardware is in place. So you can basically control this light remotely any way you need to. So you can integrate it into existing systems. If you have for example, a broadcast set that you're trying to integrate into, chances are you're going to be able to do that without a problem here. As someone who is a lover of sound, I am very pleased with the way they've implemented their cooling system here. So it does have a fan, but on the back of the light is actually a huge aluminum heatsink, and then the fan unit sits back from that a little ways. And so it doesn't have to spin at really high RPMs to move the air against the heatsink and keep things cool, which means this is the quietest fan in a light fixture that I've encountered, I think, pretty much ever. Thank you so much, Litepanels, for making a quiet light. In terms of controls, this is also one of the more intuitive types to use. It does have 6 preset buttons, so you can use the predefined presets or you can set your own presets. So for example, if you wanted to put different color temperatures in there, you could do that. And it also has 3 dials for controlling the various things that you need to, and also for navigating the menu. So they're very nicely idented. They feel very high quality. So they've done a nice job there too. In terms of where they placed them, they're also pretty nice. They're kind of on the down angle of the unit that holds the fan, and it's very easy to access and to operate from there. There's also an add-on cine battery plate, so if you wanted to power via V-mount battery, for example, with this, you could connect that, and with a 150 watt-hour battery, you can power the light for about 52 minutes at full power. So just to give you an idea of the power envelope. In terms of power draw, we're looking at about 200 watts. It goes a little bit higher than that when you get around 4,400 Kelvin. To about 227 is where I saw it top out. So very reasonable power draw there. Now I want to talk about the next part here, the photometrics, in context of other lights that I've used fairly recently, and that's going to be the Lupo Super Panel 30 full color, which is also a hard light, and then also the Aputure Nova P300C, which is actually a soft light. It actually has a larger surface than a 1x1. But if you look at the photometrics here, there are a couple of things that are kind of interesting. First of all, in terms of color quality, all of these are basically in the same range. They're all within margin of error, so they're all very, very good. They generally will do better if you're looking at the spectral similarity index when you set them to tungsten color balance, but they're all very acceptable and very good color quality across the board, regardless of whether you're into CRI, if you prefer SSI, TLCI, or even TM30, you can see that they're all basically kind of neck and neck across all of those. We took 4 different measurements with the Gemini 1x1 hard in different configurations, one without any sort of diffusion panel, another one with the light diffusion, and another one with the dome diffusion, and then we also took a measurement at 3200 Kelvin. So all the other measurements were at 5500 or daylight. And what we found is that consistently the Gemini 1x1 hard is able to produce significantly more light than the Aputure Nova or the Lupo Super Panel Full Color 30. So we're talking about a light that can produce up to 28,800 lux, which is 2,670 foot candles. That's a lot of light at 1 meter for a 1x1 panel. So if you're looking for something that can serve a lot of purposes, and that's, I think, really the beauty of the Gemini 1x1. It's full RGB, it's full bicolor, it is a hard light, it's a soft light, and it produces more light output than most of the other lights, actually any of the other lights I've used in a 1x1 form factor. And so it's just super useful for a lot of different situations. That's been one of the frustrations for me with panel lights in the past, is that they were kind of very special purpose. They were either soft or they were hard. And so there was no in between there. And it's really refreshing at this point to have something that kind of fills all of those roles. Now, are there any cons? Yes. And this is just kind of by the nature of LED panel lights, and that is that there are multi-shadows if you do not use any sort of diffusion. That's no big surprise for anyone that's worked with LED panels before, and any of the hard LED panels in particular. You're going to get the multi-shadow issue, so if you're going to use it without any sort of diffusion, you have to be prepared for that. Either embrace it for what you're doing, or do something where you're not going to have anything between the light and what it's casting its light on. So that's not usually an issue unless you have a really busy background with lots of things and multiple layers and things of that nature. But you can always just put the ultralight diffusion on there, still get a great amount of output, and accomplish what you need to. Now, the price for this light is a little bit on the high end. Now, some people will call this a con. I think a lot of engineering went into it. I think it's a pretty fair price, but for the hard version of the light, it comes in at $2,137.50 at the time of this review. That's in US dollars. And if you want to look at the soft version of the light, they also have a version that is just a soft light, and that comes in at $1,686.50 USD. So I think really fair price. They put a lot of engineering into this. It is probably my favorite 1x1 LED panel light as of May 2021. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.